Hi, everyone. Welcome again to Enjoy English School. I'm Bruce.
I'm Anthony.
Today we have, and tomorrow, a two-day article for you in our Good Eats category, my favorite category. And today, let's get busy with the weird and wonderful world of Wagashi.Yeah,
所以这边的话，我们今天要介绍的主题呢是和果子的异想世界。关于这个字，你有可能听到美国人念瓦嘎西，或者是他们如果学过日文的话，他们会念成哇嘎西，都有可能。好，都是在讲和果子。而且这个地方最酷的事情是，我刚刚跟 Bruce 老师有发现到这个 The Weird and Wonderful World of Wagashi 就是它全部都有 W 开头 alliteration 押头韵的这种厉害的 title， 我觉得是很值得去分享的。我不知道各位你们喜不喜欢吃甜食，我的话还蛮喜欢，老师的话是甜食超爱老师最爱是这个巧克力，所以我们会非常非常喜欢介绍今天的这个内容。我们赶快来看看这里面的内容吧。
Okay, my friend, my student, my superior, just used the word alliteration. And if you're studying language, especially European languages, this is a very useful thing to know. We use the same sound again and again, and to our ears, it sounds great. We like it. It's alliteration. A-L-L-I-T-E-R-A-T-I-O-N. A-L-L-I-T-E-R-A-T-I-O-N. Alliteration.
就是押头韵的意思。很多时候你会看到很多的卡通人物，像 Mickey Mouse、Donald Duck 都是那种押头韵的，听起来就朗朗上口，听起来很容易就记得了。这是一个非常取名字啦，或者是写文章非常好的一个写作的技巧。
So the weird and wonderful world of Wagashi. Let's take a look at the first sentence. Wagashi are a kind of Japanese dessert often served with tea. So the main idea is usually at the front of a sentence. Today we're going to be looking at that Japanese dessert, which is wagashi in Japanese. And it's served with tea, so it's not part of a main meal.OK,
所以在这边的话，我们会注意到一件事情，就是它是跟茶搭配的这种茶点。Wagashi 这个地方要特别注意一下，是 Wagashi 这边它那个搭配是 are a kind of Japanese dessert， 它居然是当作是一个复数的形态，好，很特别吧？这不妨可以把它圈起来啊。Wagashi are a kind of Japanese dessert.Often served with tea， 在这里的话特别注意一下 dessert 后面它直接搭配了 served with tea， 就是名词后面搭 VPP 的一个常用的，省略掉这个 which is served with tea 的 which is 整个拿掉，名词后面直接搭 VPP， 你就可以注意到这是一个很好的例子，它就是常常看到的这种茶点。
In Japanese, the word for sweets, kashi,originally meant nuts or fruits. Now, in Japanese, be careful here, it's not in the people who are Japanese. This means in the language of Japan. In that language, the word for sweets is kashi. Originally, at first, when the word was first used, it referred to or meant nuts or fruits. So it wasn't rice and meat or vegetables.Yeah,
所以在这边的话，我们就告诉我们说 in Japanese 在日文里头 the word for sweets 用来讲甜点的这个字 kashi 好，就是它的汉字呢写成一个木，然后一个坚强的坚，它也是念成坚，这个汉字是写成这样子。原本 meant nuts or fruits 好，原本的意思是指坚果或者是水果的意思哦。
Some students may wonder, well, why fruits?Isn't fruit already plural? Well, it can be, but by adding S, we want you to think of many kinds of fruit.
没错，所以在这里的话，大部分都会讲到 fruit and vegetables。好 ，fruit 的话很多是一个总称，就会当做复数的表达，就是水果类的。但如果说你今天要提到说各式各样的水果的时候，我们会加上一个 s， 让你脑中会出现说葡萄啦、香蕉、橘子啊，就这种各式各样的东西就出来了。加了 s， 它有它的必要性跟它的功能，所以这句话就没有问题了。
The association with sugar didn't appear until around the 1500s. Association with A, association with B is a relationship. The two things have some connection. And here we're talking about kashi as a dessert and as a sweet, something sweet to the taste. The original use of the word didn't necessarily talk about sweet things, but beginning about the 16th century, that would be the Ming Dynasty in Chinese times. It didn't start until towards the end of the Ming Dynasty.
没错，所以在这边的话呢，你看到 the association 这个字的话，其实意思就是 connection， 就是关联。可是这个字kashi与糖的关联呢，其实是到了后来16世纪初的时候才开始出现的。The association with sugar didn't appear until， 不妨可以帮我把这个 didn't 跟 until 圈起来，一样，它是指某一个时间点之后才怎么样的话，我们会有一个 not 在前面 ，until 在后面，这样才对。Around the 1500s， 也就是在16世纪初的时候才开始跟糖有了连结，卡西。
Trade with China led Japan to develop a tea culture. So tea was not native to Japan, or maybe they had the plant, but they didn't use it until the Chinese trade started, and they learned to love tea.
OK， 所以你看到这边很巧妙哦，他前面提到它是茶点，对不对？然后顺便就讲一下茶在这个日本国内发展的一些短短的历史。他说 ，Trade with China 跟中国贸易的结果呢 ，led Japan to develop a tea culture， 也就帮助了这个日本开始发展了他们国内的茶道。
However, during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, Japan didn't trade much with other nations. So at first there was trade, and then Japan more or less closed itself off. It stopped communicating with and trading with other nations in this Edo period. That would be the late Ming and the early Qing.
没错，现在这样告诉你了。However 就是有个转折了，对不对？他说 During the Edo period。Edo period 就是指这个江户时代。那江户时代其实在历史上面它是一个锁国的时代，就是把国门关起来，不太跟人家贸易的。好，所以这边的话，它是在这个明朝到清朝初期的这段时间，好，1603到1868年的时候 ，Japan didn't trade much with other nations。正如我所说，它是锁国嘛，所以它在其他的国家的贸易本身是没有很多的。
During that time, Wagashi developed into an art form. They started something and then they improved it and made more of it, more different kinds of it.
就是在这个时期，好，就在江户时期的时候 ，During that time, Wagashi developed into an art form， 它就慢慢转成了这个和果子，转成了这种比较偏向艺术的形态，比较开始走艺术比较高端的这种艺术形态去表现。
In 1868, after Japan began opening up to more trade, new baking techniques and new ingredients were introduced, which led to today's Wagashi.
OK， 所以在这边的话，最后再告诉你了，在1868年的时候 ，in 1868, after Japan began opening up to more trade， 那时候不晓得各位你们有没有看，就是后来的话，就是因为有黑船来袭。后来我记得是 Matthew Perry， 好，他们带了人来，打开了这个日本的大门，后来就结束了锁国时期。他这边告诉你说了，好，这个opening up to more trade, new baking techniques， 新的烘焙的技术呢 ，and new ingredients， 新的这些原料，不同的这种成分 were introduced， 好，就被引进了日本。然后呢 ，which led to today's Wagashi， 就变成了现在我们所看到更多元、更不同风貌的和果子。
New ingredients. Originally, they probably used rice flour. The Americans introduced wheat and corn as well, so that different tastes could be baked.
Yeah， 所以说原本它可能是用这个米啦，或者是用面做成那种面粉嘛。那如果说到国外引进来，可能有玉米的这种面粉，或者是小麦的面粉就引进来了，会有不同的这种吃起来或者是做起来的时候会有不一样的那种口感，所以这个是一个非常非常大的一个变革。
Okay, let's take a short break, and when we come back, of course, we continue. In the first paragraph, we talked about the history of Wagashi, and now we're going to take a look at today. There is no single definition of Wagashi. So there's not just, remember it became an art form, many different kinds, new ingredients, so it's not just one type. You cannot define Wagashi in just one sentence.
没错，所以在这边的话，我们就第二段里面就提到了说，时至今日呢，它的状况是怎么样 ？There's no single definition of Wagashi， 就是说，在这个和果子里面，可能想到说和果子应该有固定的制作方式吧？不对，没有任何的一个特殊的一个固定的一个定义说Wagashi要怎么做。There's no single definition。definition 就是定义的意思，所以有各式各样的不同的和果子。
Instead, any small sweet that pairs well with tea may be called Wagashi. So there's no one single definition. Instead, rather than that situation, we have this, and it is that anything that matches or goes with tea can, if it's sweet, can be called Wagashi.OK，
所以现在他告诉你说，既然没有固定的统一的这种定义嘛，而后面正常的这另外的状况就是什么呢 ？Any small sweet， 任何这种小的甜的这种甜点 that pairs well with tea， 跟茶可以很搭配的这种小茶点呢 ，may be called Wagashi， 就可以被称之为和果子了。
With the exception of eggs, these sweets are made almost entirely without animal products.With the exception of 除了什么以外 it's easier to say in Chinese than in English.
That's true.
So they do use eggs, but they don't use meat or skin or fat from animals. Those are animal products. Well, egg is an animal product, but it's the only one that might be used in Wagashi.
所以在这边的话，你看到 with the exception of eggs， 这个 exception 就是除外，而且是例外的这种事情。老师刚刚提到其他像是 meat、skin， 好，那些东西的话都不会用在Wagashi，不会用在这个和果子上面。好，只有可能用到一点点蛋这样子。These sweets are made almost entirely without animal products。动物性的制品多半几乎完全不会放在和果子里头，所以接下来这句话讲的是这种和果子内部的成分有哪一些？除了蛋之外，几乎没有任何的动物性的这种制品在里面。
In the first paragraph, we used the word ingredients, and here it is again. We'll tell you which ingredients you can expect if you're eating Wagashi. Common ingredients, widely used ingredients, include beans and bean paste, rice, wheat flour, nuts, and sugar.
OK， 那到底会用什么样子的东西来当做这里面的成分呢？好 ，ingredients 这个词非常非常的重要。Common ingredients 常见的这些成分，其中包括有 beans 豆子啦 ，or bean paste 豆沙 ，rice 稻米。Wheat flour 好用小麦磨成的面粉 nuts 好一点坚果 and sugar 还有糖
And it's the tang that makes us call it in the West we call it a dessert because it's specially prepared. It's not the main meal and it's sweet. Anything like that we can call a dessert.
所以在这里的话就是因为这个糖的关系所以它又变成了甜点所以很多时候英文里面 desserts 好都是指的是那种有糖的吃起来甜甜的那种甜点
Okay, let's take a short break and we'll be back to finish up today's article. All right, we begin our last paragraph with, because the 4 seasons in Japan are so special, foods also change with the season. Well, every season is special. What is really meant here is they're so different. Here in Taiwan, we don't have much snow unless you live way up in the mountains. So what you call winter, people like me who have 4 or 5 months of snow in the year, we don't consider this winter. It's like a long fall.
OK， 老师是来自于雪城 Syracuse， 好，非常非常冷的一个地方啊！我的天哪，我后来看到的时候发现，哦，动不动我去查一下老师那边，动不动就是零下几度，所以对老师来讲，我们这个根本不算是什么冬天啊。但是在这边的这个文章里，他讲说 ，because the 4 seasons in Japan are so special， 这边的 special that means so different， 它是一个四季分明的地方。好，日本的话是四季分明。Foods also change with the season。那所有的吃的食物呢，也会随着季节而有所改变。
In fact, we can add here for you the phrase in season, which means just what the sentence said. You can't find strawberries in the middle of winter unless they're imported. But the local foods, of course, they change with the different seasons. So now, we could say strawberries are now in season. It's March or April, about this time of year in Taiwan. Wow, lots and lots of strawberries. They're in season.
In season 就是指当令或是当季的水果啦，或什么东西是正当令的食物啦、水果都可以用 in season 来表达哦。
Wagashi are no different. So they change with the seasons too.OK,
所以 Wagashi are no different， 就是这个 Wagashi 的话，也像其他的食物一样，也会随着季节而有所变化。
Many are available only at certain times of year. Just as we said, you can't buy a watermelon in Syracuse in January.
没错，所以老师刚刚提到说，在雪城的话，你不可能在1月的时候买到西瓜，不可能的事情。所以这些当地的这种食材、当令的、当季的这种水果啦，或是放在这里面的成分，也会随着季节而有所改变。他说 ，Many are available only at certain times of year， 某些这种wagashi就是在某些季节才可以吃得到，才可以买得到哦。
The next sentence gives us an example of that in Japan. Kashiwa mochi, for example, are usually sold in May. In the month of May, some kinds of wagashi are in season. So in May, you can buy kashiwa mochi, but maybe not in November or December.OK,
接下来我们就举到一个例子咯。kashiwa mochi， 好，这个字的话呢，就是指这种薄饼。这个薄呢是松柏长青的柏，一种树的名字。薄饼呢，或者可以叫做这个柏树薄叶马吉，对不对？那么 mochi 的意思就是马吉的意思嘛。好，所以他就举了这个例子 ，are usually sold in May， 通常只有5月才有机会买到这种薄叶的马吉哦。
Other wagashi reflect the change in season by changing their shape or the bean paste inside. There's another way to reflect or show the changing seasons from spring to summer, from fall to winter, and so on, by changing their shape. They are made in different shapes. I don't know how. Or they may change the bean paste. Beans, we already talked about.If you take beans and you make them soft by putting them in water, or if they're fresh and then you mash them together, mash, M-A-S-H, then you get what we call a paste. If you add sugar to it, there are a lot of sweet bean paste things to eat in Taiwan.
Yeah, 没有错。所以在这边的话，他就提到说了 ，other wagashi reflect the change in season。他们其他的这些和果子会慢慢的去反映 reflect or to show。老师刚刚提到这个字 to show， 去显示出呢季节的这种变换 by changing their shape。不管是在外形上做变化呢 or the bean paste inside， 在里面内馅的这个豆沙啊，可能会做一些不同的一些变化，不管是内馅或是外形都会做变化，来反映出季节变了那种感觉。
Similarly, in the same way, wagashi are specific to certain holidays. Just as Westerners we make cookies like Christmas trees at Christmas. During certain holidays, we prepare foods that look like something we think of as belonging to a certain holiday.
没错，所以说在这里这句话说 Similarly, some wagashi are specific to certain holidays. 有的时候除了季节限定的之外，还有节庆限定的。老师刚刚就提到说如果说今天你在卖饼干的话，到了这个圣诞节的时候，你可能就会卖那种圣诞树型的饼干或是各式各样这种圣诞老人型的饼干，对不对？好，就是节庆限定的。所以这边也是一样 Similarly 指的是同样的。Some wagashi 有一些的和果子 are specific to 特别是针对certain holidays 节庆来制作的。
Okay, let's take a short break. Okay, welcome back, and now we're ready to finish up. We talked about bean paste. There's another word, and they're easy to confuse. Pea. P-E-A is also that kind of vegetable, but both beans and peas, there are many kinds, and sometimes they're hard to distinguish.
所以老师这边提到这个豆子呢，在英文里面，除了我们刚刚在课文里面学到的这个 beans 之外呢，还有一个是 peas, P-E-A 这个 peas， 那个豌豆啦什么的这种类型的就是 peas。好，很多时候是蛮难分的。
Okay, that's it for today's lesson, but we continue tomorrow, so don't go too far away. Till then, bye-bye.
第48页，美食飨宴，和果子的异想世界。
The Weird and Wonderful World of Wagashi.Wagashi are a kind of Japanese dessert often served with tea. In Japanese, the word for sweets, kashi, originally meant nuts or fruits. The association with sugar didn't appear until around the 1500s. Trade with China led Japan to develop a tea culture. However, during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, Japan didn't trade much with other nations. During that time, wagashi developed into an art form. In 1868, after Japan began opening up to more trade, new baking techniques and new ingredients were introduced, which led to today's wagashi. Today, there is no single definition of wagashi. Instead, any small sweet that pairs well with tea may be called wagashi. With the exception of eggs, these sweets are made almost entirely without animal products. Common ingredients include beans and bean paste, rice, wheat flour, nuts, and sugar. Because the 4 seasons in Japan are so special, foods also change with the season. Wagashi are no different. Many are available only at certain times of year. Kashi wa mochi, for example, are usually sold in May. Other wagashi reflect the change in season by changing their shape or the bean paste inside. Similarly, some wagashi are specific to certain holidays.